everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly Biederman. I'm the CEO of NHRL, and I'm here with Sam Hansen, Evil Henchman, and we're also joined today by Austin McCord, founder of NHRL. Thanks to everybody who submitted questions. Sam is going to be our evil moderator today, yeah. So he's taking on an extension of his role. So we're going to answer a number of the questions that came in advance, and we've grouped them into a couple of different categories. We'll go through all of those, and then any new questions that have come in, we will take a stab at those as well.
Sounds good. You want to start by looking ahead, Kelly?
Yeah, I think it's a great time to look ahead into 2024. There were a lot of questions here around national events, national expansion. We did do a quiet rebrand into National Havoc Robot League earlier this year. We are really excited to share that we will have more events in more places in 2024. Right now, we currently host 6 qualifying events and World Championships all here in Norwalk, Connecticut. Our plan in 2024 is to increase the number of qualifying tournaments to 11. We will host 11 qualifying tournaments. A group of those will be in Norwalk, likely 5 to 6 of those will be in Norwalk, but we will host the balance of those outside of Norwalk in other parts of the country. We are currently exploring venues and dates to lock those things in, so it's all a very active process at the moment, and it's a little bit complex, but we're putting all of the pins around it. We'll be able to announce the Norwalk dates in the next couple of weeks. Those we are more sure about, and then we will roll out the national and regional events a little bit later. We will also still host a championships event that will likely be in early December of 2024, and it will be in the Northeast, but likely not at 165 Water Street. So starting with a lot of breaking news here.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We are looking to expand into other locations around the country. Like I said, we're working on those, but regionally strategic locations where a lot of our builders are flying in from, and where there are high concentrations of staff available, and a lot of interest in things like our academy and places like that. So a lot of different pieces of work going into how we make those selections.
Well, I'm relieved that we're not just going to different Norwalks throughout the country.
It is not just Norwalk, Ohio, Norwalk, California, although who knows, maybe there's a perfect robot fighting venue in one of those.
All right, so we know how many events we're going to do next year and how many are going to be outside of Norwalk, Connecticut. And so we're not quite ready to go into locations just yet. But for 2024, is there any sort of regulation updates that are happening?
Yeah, so right now we are in the process of laying out the rule changes and regulation changes for 2024. So what that process looks like is we have a big Google spreadsheet. You'll hear a lot about Google spreadsheets today for all those interested. But we have a big Google spreadsheet that has about 50 proposed rules and regulations changes at present, and that is kind of an initial review. It's going through some consolidating and culling, and that will go through a couple of more rounds of review that start to include groups of builders, and that will happen over the next couple of weeks. We will announce those rule changes before championships this year, likely by the September event, but just trying to work through the volume of feedback. The proposed rule changes come from our own internal experiences, as well as feedback that we've gotten, particularly constructive feedback that we've gotten through email, Discord, other places like that. But yeah, a number of different things that are under consideration, and we can get into that a little bit more.
And so any sort of rule change is for the 2024 season?
Correct, unless there is a safety, an imminent safety or critical reason that we have to implement a rule change before the end of the season.
Makes sense. Awesome. Let's see. So we've got a lot of robots signed up for the September competition coming up. Are we looking in the future to change our registration limits?
I think that looking at the number of events that we have going into next year, we aren't sure how necessary registration caps will be. Those will depend and vary based on the venues and locations that we choose to host our tournaments in. So there's a little bit of TBD on that. I think that with the Norwalk venue, we have definitely become a bursting at the seams situation. So it's likely that the registration caps here in Norwalk will stay intact, but hopefully with adding more events and more venues, the pressure will be released a bit, and we will, still grow, but that it'll be at a slightly more manageable pace. But who knows? We were surprised earlier this year.
The goal is to fight as many robots as we possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, we've got big.
Like, we want to have as many events as we can, and to have as many robots competing as possible, and that's a big part of growing the sport. But we're trying to do it in a way where we can do it safely and we can generate a great experience for everyone involved. And so that's the balance. And like, we've reached the maximum of what we can do within our own facility. And so there might be a little headroom there, but it's not going to be a ton. And so that's a big part of our expansion next year, and really leaning into the National Havoc Robot League. And it's going to be really exciting as we start to roll out these dates and really come to where the builders are.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, Austin, you were talking about growth and how we're trying to grow the sport by bringing in as many robots as possible. We had another question specifically about growth, and they wanted to know, how has our growth been across the world of socials? On our last AMA, we had impressive numbers, and is this still the case, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a huge amount of social growth over the last 18 months. We have seen an increase from, I think in March or April of last year, we were around 5,000 followers across social platforms, and we're over 600,000 now. So that's a pretty significant amount of growth in the last 18 months. And about 99% of that growth has been organic. So we haven't paid for advertising to help to reach that audience and to convert that audience, which is something that's really important in our growth strategy. I think that there's so much more that we can do. There's so many more people we can reach. What's been really exciting to see is that social growth is really contributing to the growth of the builder population. At the last event, I was speaking with a couple of new builders who I didn't recognize. It was their first event, and when I asked them how they learned about NHRL, they said that they saw it on TikTok, that they kind of went down a rabbit hole and started watching videos to learn how to build bots. And that's really, that conversion from fan to builder is super important to us, and something to see that the audience growth is having the effect that we want it to is really exciting.
Yeah. I also think like we do a bad job of reminding our builders to like and subscribe and share the message and get the word out. And that growing that, social media presence is kind of everybody's job associated with this, and is a big part of like what makes this successful. And we've seen that tremendous growth from TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and that's been fantastic. But we still need to. Everybody's got to like and subscribe and spread the word, because that's really how you grow the sport.
Yeah, and I think that adding on to that, there are a number of things that we have learned over the last 18 months about strategies that work really effectively and efficiently for growing audiences. And to the extent that we're able to support the builder community in building their own profiles, that's something that we will be also exploring in 2024 and beyond. So yeah, I mean, audience growth has been fantastic, and that's a really key piece of the strategy.
It has been nice to see some of the builders with their event recap videos and fight breakdowns from our tournaments. So we see you, and we appreciate it as well. So let's move on just a little bit and talk about sort of the demographics that make up our builders. We had a question: can you tell us some of the stats that you have on the builders and bots that attend NHRL? You have many rookie builders, bots, and they just want to know what are our efforts? Sorry. Rookie builders and bots are now in the fold thanks to the efforts of us and our staff. That was the question. I believe that was a Chad question. Thanks, Chad.
Yes, thank you, Chad. So it varies a bit tournament to tournament. Our stats around rookies is typically between 15 and 20% of the competitor field is rookies at each event, which is terrific.
Wow.
It's really amazing to see that. You know, I haven't seen the stats for September yet, so I'm not sure where we stand on rookies versus previous competitors. Obviously, it's a large group and filled up pretty quickly, but we are really excited about the amount of rookies and the number of people that are joining us. Like I said, I have spoken with a few builders at the last couple of events who've found us online. Some amazing stories of builders who live all across the country and the world who have found us. That's been a really exciting piece of the growth, having people come in from China, and we've got Australia and New Zealand and so many Brazilian robots, which is really exciting. More South American representation coming. That's been great. But even just anecdotal stories that I hear, I think it was the builder of Boxbot at the June event who came, and I was talking to his dad. The builder of Boxbot is a 14-year-old, and I was speaking with his dad, and he said that his son had found NHRL online, and when they had been speaking as a family about what they wanted to do for their family vacation later that year, he said, I want to go to Norwalk, Connecticut and fight robots. And that was, I mean, that's what you do it for. So that was a really exciting moment. And those sorts of stories really, you know, are why we do what we do. I think that we've definitely seen an increase in the number of women who have been competing. That's largely anecdotal. We don't really collect a ton of demographic data about builders yet, but anecdotally, we've seen a lot more women, a lot of young women in particular, young students. So that's been really exciting. Something that is really important to us. I think diversity and inclusion across the STEM landscape is something that has been a challenge that extends far beyond the reaches of NHRL. I know that there's a question that came in a little bit late on this, and we can get to it in a few minutes, but I would say anecdotally, we're definitely seeing growth in that, but there's more that we can do and more that we want to do to encourage people who from all backgrounds and walks of life to compete with us. Yeah, I think that covers it on most of those stats, but
I'd say
more specific stats I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I agree. I've been competing in fighting robots for 20 years, and we've never seen this amount of diversity that we do at an NHRL tournament, and it is really special because the more folks that are coming to our events, the better the events are. We have more ideas coming in, more new robots. It's just the more people, the better, and we can't just have one type of person and be great.
That's very true.
All right, so let's move on to something a little fun here. Let's talk about some surprising weapons and setups that we've seen at some of our events. The question was, what weapons or designs were the most surprisingly successful?
So my favorite design or recent design is Hot Wings. I think Hot Wings is so creative and really effective, and I love watching it. So that would be my vote for one of my favorites right now. I think that also in the last tournament, we saw Supreme Ruler come in, and the efficiency of that control bot was something that we haven't really seen much of, and I think that there's something really remarkable about that. So I will give some credit there. We asked a couple of our other announcers. Austin, do you have any ads, or Sam, do you guys have any thoughts? We asked a couple of the announcers this question too. I'll pull up their responses.
I just think, like, the more that people use fire to win matches, the happier I am as a human being.
All right.
Truth. We love the fire. I also think the dominance of horizontal spinners has been really interesting this season. Seeing that happen has been great to see. Some other ones that we got from when we polled the group, positively hysterical stationary beater bar on a hammer was a favorite. We had some shout outs for Spitfire, controversial, but some shout outs for Spitfire. The turret system on Yamato 2's flamethrower, Maximizer, and Thagomizer style weapons. So that has been some popular stuff. So yeah, I think a lot of really great designs that we're seeing, and love anybody who's coming in with something creative for sure. But Hot Wings has my heart at the moment.
Absolutely. And it was cool to see it evolve and get better over time too.
Yeah.
Hot Wings was
It's
great.
just really, and the hugs, the hugs are just so good.
All right. Let's get to this question. Why has NHRL grown so fast, and what are you doing to make sure it keeps growing but doesn't get too big?
So yeah, I mean, we've seen a great deal of growth for NHRL, and that's come through social growth. To bring in new fans and builders to the sport, putting on the best possible events that people want to come back to, and fostering an environment that's challenging and fun, but also welcoming and open. And I think that there's a lot that we do and we see around growth that's been really exciting. Austin, is there anything you want to jump in on this? I know that you have a lot of thoughts about growth and the future.
Yeah, I mean, why do we grow so fast? Because we have amazing builders. That's the answer. How will we prevent from getting too big? And I think the answer is we want to get bigger, but like each event, we know what the most number of fights we can fit through in a day. And we used to have events that ended at 1 or 2 in the morning, which was super painful. And now we've really got the flow down so that we can finish before 10 p.m. And so it means, people can go still get a late dinner after an event, even if they won. So there's good balance there. And now it's about going horizontal and having events in many places and scaling out the team so that we can have, multiple events at once. And I think a lot about people who've watched like SpaceX when they've been launching rockets, and it was like they could do one at a time, and now they can do 2 from 2 launch pads and 3, and slowly building out more and more capability. And it feels like we've really honed in what makes a great Norwalk event. And so now it's about how do we bring that everywhere else. And so each event should feel self-contained and like awesome and fun all on its own.
Nice.
Yeah, and I would add to that as well that we are a really data-oriented group, and we look a lot at different data points. It's not quite as, fun of an answer, but I think that a lot of what we try to do is focus on really, really figuring out on the point of not getting too big or too fast or anything like that. I think that what we really try to do is look at exactly how many robots we can put through each cage and how many staff members we need for that, and how the cost per builder, the cost per spectator, all of those sorts of things are things that we factor into the decisions that we make as a business. So to us, like Austin said earlier, we want more robots and to grow the sport. And so there's no part of us that looks at too big as a problem for the league at a whole. But I think that at an event-to-event scale, it's about just, knowing what our limits are and creating an environment where we can execute the best event possible with the right numbers of robots, staff, cages, et cetera.
Nice.
Yeah, too big would mean not fun. And we want it to be fun. We want it to be awesome and just such the cool experience that it is. And we want to bring that experience to as many people as humanly possible, as fast as humanly possible. And so we're doing all of those things. But yeah, we will always make sure that it stays fun.
And then how do we make money?
How will NHRL make money is specifically how the
Underpants gnomes. Actually, that's the secret. You don't know the data collection. The answer on the money factor is all about audience. And so we're believers that this sport is something that people want to watch, and people who don't even know that they want to watch it. And every time, the audience, these people they come to an event and they go, I don't really think I'd be into this, but I was just curious. And they leave super fans. And so the more we can grow that audience, the more there's revenue potential there, and the more that we can help with sponsorships and really connecting brands to that audience. But at this stage, everything is around growing the audience. And it's super clear that we're never going to make our money by charging registration fee. All of our money is going to come from the audience. And so we need to have as large an audience as possible.
And what are some of the challenges with acquiring that audience or growing our audience? Because I know we have good social growth, but how do we turn that into dollars?
Go ahead, Austin.
Oh, I mean, I think it's telling the story about why this is an important place to be and an important place to sponsor, and just that the engineers that are building the future are the people that come and compete at NHRL for free and for fun. And so these are people that you want to get in front of, that you want to talk to, that you want to influence. And so that's where, you know, the audience becomes dollars in that sense. The challenges in growing the audience is that everybody and everything is competing for your time. And so, you know, it's a crowded environment, but I think that NHRL is a really unique media product. And we need to do a better job of, one, telling our competitors, get the word out so that it's not just us, but just leaning a little bit harder to ask everybody to get the word out and to watch it. And then we need to continue to be creative in how we take all the exciting things that happen at an event and make them available for people to watch. And so, you know, is that in the form of a YouTube short? Is it in the form of a 10-minute long form YouTube? Is it in the form of, you know, all different kinds of content? Or should we try to package a tournament into like 2 hours every night sort of thing? And what are the different ways that we can tell these incredible stories that are the most captivating for a viewer? And so I think you'll see us experiment a lot with that. Obviously, the core live stream is not going to go away. That's core to who we are. But getting better at telling the stories is something that we continue to work on, because that's really the part that gets people bought in and so excited.
That's great. All right. Let us move on to a question about growth and employment. At what point will NHRL consider adding into the evil henchman workforce? Also, is there
well, we just have to hope Sam doesn't get injured. Like, you know, a robot therapy session that goes wrong could be scary.
Yeah, the emotional damage from talking to a damaged
well,
robot.
I mean, you know, like a whole series of climbing harnesses arrived at the building this week. So, like, there are always new challenges.
And new ways to reduce the henchman population.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a second part to this question that I want to make sure I address, which is consideration for crew and judges and consistency over multiple locations. And I think that, to me, yes, there's definitely a world in which, as we expand nationally, that we have a more consistent pool of people who know our rules, know our systems, know our cages, all of those sorts of things. So to the extent that, you know, we have people who are interested in those things and qualified for those things, who we want to bring on in that kind of a contract capacity, it might be something that we explore doing. I wouldn't say that we have a plan for it right now, but something that has definitely crossed my mind.
Excellent. And I probably won't use those climbing harnesses on it, Austin. I'll be fine with just a rope. Okay.
Well, the harnesses are there to keep you safe, and you know we may need to expand the henchman population, but part of the process of becoming a henchman is that wherever we post the job application will be obscure, and the interview process is strange, and like how you become one, it's one of those great mysteries in life. And Sam passed through the great filter, and he's not allowed to share how he did it. So we'll see. But stay tuned and check the source code. Look under, you know, rocks, strange places. You never know. There might be an opportunity to apply.
I also have no idea what the harnesses are for. I feel like I'm completely in the dark right now. So I'm going to have to ask about this a little later.
Don't worry about it, Kelly. But yeah, check your geocaches if you want to be a henchman. Let's move on to the question about funding small events. Would you consider funding small local events around the country? I would imagine that if you did, these events wouldn't be qualifying events, but having one or two more times a year to work out issues would be quite useful for builders.
Yeah, so I think this kind of dovetails with a separate set of questions around rookie tournaments and other tournaments. So I'll try to thread a couple of things here. One, we've obviously just announced that we're going to have more events next year, so hopefully that adds more opportunity for people who are interested. I think that as well, the way that we are kind of looking at growth is, and the way I talk about what we do is that we're building a sport, and in another example of a sport, take basketball. There's everything from a local community basketball court through to the NBA. And so trying to understand how we build a sport around robot combat involves things like how do we figure out what the equivalent of a community basketball court is for robot combat, and how do we make that something that is accessible, whether or not it's something that NHRL individually does, or whether that's something that comes through programs that we've done, such as giving programs and things like that, partnerships with community organizations. There's a number of different ways that we can go about this, but I think that's something I think about a lot, is how we make it more accessible. This is a sport that is not quite as easy to pick up as basketball, where you literally pick up a basketball. This is obviously the barrier to entry is very, very different. So the idea of how we lower that barrier is something I think about a lot, but having small local events and access to cages and things like that around the country is something that we absolutely think about a lot. And as I said, it kind of dovetails with some other questions that came through. So Sam, I'm going to partly do your job here and move things around, but
just a little bit.
Oh, go ahead.
So NHRL is like a stage 5 cash fire. And we're looking to kind of balance those pieces as we grow, which limits our ability to support things that aren't NHRL at this moment. And the second that we cross over that line, and we actually think we will in the next 2 years or so, supporting individual events and things like that that are outside of the NHRL brand become a lot easier for us to make happen. In addition, I would say that the way that we think about support is a lot around what are the things that we can do that will pay back more than once. And so some money to rent a facility for an evening or whatever, that's gone once that evening happens. But helping someone build a cage, helping someone with some designs associated with these things so that, they can have many, many fights, many, many times, those things are way more aligned towards like that mission of growing the sport than just the dollars that pay out one time.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I have been to a couple events this year that were supported by the STEM grants that NHRL gave out last year, and it's really awesome to see those dollars being put to work and making tournaments throughout the country. So it's awesome.
Thanks, Sam.
All right.
Go ahead.
Nope, after you. Taking over my job here?
No, I'm not going to take over. Yeah, we'll get to them when we get to them.
Okay, then let's now that I'm back in control, this question is called Henchman Sam. Is it true he commutes to work on a unicycle, runs moonshine out of the Baja under the cover of darkness, and that he's never, ever jumped in his life?
Hold on, you can't give away all the secrets, Sam. And I can verify the unicycle commute. The Baja secrets, and the capabilities of the Baja need to be kept hidden from the world until the appropriate time. And we have a harness, so now Sam can attempt jumping if he wishes.
I'm so excited. It's something I've never done. All right. Let's see. Let's go back to something real. Tournament structure for finals. You want to talk about championships in November?
Yeah. So we can talk about championships. We are in the late stages of socializing a tournament structure with a handful of builders in the community. So far, it's been pretty well received. I think we have a couple of kinks to work out in the next couple of days, but we should be able to announce that by Labor Day. I can give you a preview that it is not double elimination, but it is also not our exact format from this season. So it is likely that it will be something a bit different. So far, like I said, it's been really well received, and other than just a couple of questions, we're just about ready to announce it. So we should be able to have that next week.
It'll be good. All right. Big prizes again for the 2023 championships?
Yeah, so right now we're looking at the charitable giving strategy. I think that what we did last year was logistically very difficult to execute. And so we learned a lot from that. But also it was really, really meaningful to be able to support so many organizations that meant a lot to our builder community. It was also really meaningful to be able to support a lot of universities who are competitors with NHRL and those who are not. I would say right now we're just trying to figure out what the 2023 program would look like. There will still be a charitable giving component to championships, but we'll be able to share that by September, by the September event.
Okay, that sounds good. I think that's all we had for championships. So we can dig into some.
I mean, I think, is it safe to say that we're still going to give away a ton of money to charity?
Yes, yes, we're still going to give away $2 million to charity. So just figuring out exactly what those charities are.
This is how you know that you've been working at NHRL too long, is when you say we're still going to give away $2 million to charity like it's a chore.
No, it's not a. I'm super.
Like, no, it's not that big of a deal.
No, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal, and I've said before, and I don't mean to be anything other than excited about it. But I think that, I've said before that one of the most rewarding experiences of my life was being able to help administer the grant programs and reading applications and letters from organizations that we gave money to, visiting some of the charities where we've had an impact. I mean, I can't say enough about how meaningful that has been. And there's a real core value at NHRL around giving back, and being able to cement that and also share that with the community is something that I think is really valuable and really important. And so I think, there's nothing about it that I would say I'm not excited about. We are going to give away another $2 million, and it's one of the great joys of this job, and something that I hope that everyone has a chance to experience.
It's so much money, and it goes right back into our community and grows there and turns into brushless motors and cage walls and cage floors, and it's just amazing to have that influx of cash into our sport. Thank you, Austin, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin.
All right, let's talk about some feedback. Would NHRL ever consider making a list of action items the league is looking to improve upon with status?
Yeah, I can answer that, and I'll answer a second question that came along with this that's related, which is what our post-mortem process looks like after events. We actually just coincidentally did our post-mortem from the August event today, a little later than we usually would, but we had some team vacation time. But typically our post-mortem process includes everybody on the team and everyone who works with the event, our announcers, et cetera, our production crew. Everybody feeds in and has the opportunity to share feedback on a number of different categories. I counted today the number of line items in our spreadsheet that has like 10 tabs. It was like 161 lines of feedback or boxes of feedback. So a lot of different things that we went through today, each one individually. That feedback also comes from things like builder surveys that we send out after the event. It comes from staff surveys that go to the wider event day staff. It goes to spectators, so it includes spectator feedback. So I know that I've said before, feedback is a gift. I really mean it. I take it all really seriously, and all of that goes into this post-mortem process that we go through and decide what we want to action in the short term, what we want to keep on the list for long term. That might be something that we can't do in a 6-week cycle between events, or something that we want to fold into a bigger piece of work. So an example of a bigger piece of work is something around event notifications. There's a lot of feedback on SparkyCast that relates to work that we're doing on event notifications, and so it's about tying those things together. So that's just a very, very high-level overview of the postmortem process. That dovetails into the list of action items that the league is looking to improve. We haven't done something like that publicly, but I think that it's something that we could work on doing. So our head of operations, Ed, can...
I feel more comfortable if we share what we got done. But I worry that like the backlog is long and deep, and like that line of where you sit between what we would share and what we would not share is a lot, and we'd be happy to share. These are the changes that we made between these two events, but I just like it's probably several hundred items, and like the prioritization of which we do when and why is like a lot of complicated internal calculus based on time and resources and structure. And so it's not really super valuable to share externally, because like we'll definitely we'll jump around the list.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I would agree with that.
But release notes we would gladly share, basically. Here's what's changed between this event and last event.
Sure, we can work on that, and I think that it just goes to a wider point about feedback, which has been a hot subject for the last couple of weeks, and I think that you know, the amount of feedback that we receive is enormous. A lot of that feedback is really constructive, and some of that feedback is not quite as constructive, but we do really take as much of that in as we can, and that does inform these lists of things that we do. But I think that it's important to understand that, you know, ideas are often seemingly straightforward on the surface and a lot more complicated to execute. And so to Austin's point, providing you a list of like everything that we are thinking about doing could open up concern that we're not doing enough, when I think in fact we do a lot. And if we choose not to do something, there is probably a very good reason for that. And we're happy to have conversations. If you want to know why we haven't done something, we're happy to have those conversations, but it's difficult to do that in like a really, you know, hot Discord conversation. So just saying that, like, the suggestion box is a good example of something where I've been kind of jumping in there, trying to read as many comments as possible, respond to those things, and answer questions. And I think that it's a lot easier than when there's, you know, 1,000 messages in an hour.
Absolutely. So what is the most effective feedback for you?
What is the most effective feedback?
Yeah, what sort of feedback resonates the most with you?
I think when people approach things in a manner that's, you know, curious about why we do or don't do something, that's always a really helpful place to start. I've got Ted Lasso sticker on the back of my
and that says, be curious.
Not judgmental.
Okay.
So I think that stands out to me as just sort of a personal note. But I think that overall, yeah, it's very difficult when there are a lot of messages coming in to really parse signal from noise. And so having one-on-one conversations with builders, I have a lot of those. That's really helpful for me in understanding things. I love to just like chat informally with people, and more formally with people when they, you know, have notes and want to send them to me. I'll hop on a call and talk it through. So overall, that's been a really helpful process for me. And then, yeah, just being able to approach things from a place of, you know, curiosity is very helpful.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, let's see. Let's move on a little bit. We've got a question about YouTube. Why change to not showing every fight on YouTube? This one's a little spicy. If you're going to broadcast Lindsay reading cringy super chats,
you don't need to read it. You don't need to read it.
All right, let's answer that one.
I think that with this question, I don't think it was phrased super constructively. So you should feel free to rephrase it and send it to me in a DM. But I think I just want to comment on this specifically in a slightly different way. One thing I want to say is the Clyde's Value Corner segments, for those of you who aren't attached to NHRL crew and production, filming those was one of the most hysterical behind the scenes moments that we've ever had. We had this random idea, we pulled it together really quickly and just had a lot of fun with it. We handed it to Chris DeChico. He was amazing in just coming back with these really fun ideas. Filming it, we were all in stitches, and to be clear, that like moment when Chris used the hot sauce instead of the prop hot sauce, we actually like created a prop hot sauce, and he accidentally grabbed the wrong bottle, so that was actually genuine, and it was really, really funny. And so I just want to shout out to our crew and to Chris for being amazing sports about the whole thing. I think it was really fun and just an experiment and something that we enjoyed doing, and you know, just appreciate everyone kind of like flying by the seat of their pants on that one. The other thing I want to just note here is that there's, a note about wanting to see more fights and things being skipped and filler content and stuff like that. And I would say we endeavor to show as many fights as is practical. The people who run the stream and sit at the desk are people who are working for 14 hours straight with their minds like completely on the entire time. They work really hard. They're professionals. They do a great job. Being able to have like a quick 3-minute filler or ad break, like actually gives them a chance to stand up and stretch their legs, run to the bathroom, all of those sorts of things that often they don't really get more than a few minutes to do in between somebody else kind of filling in their role. And I don't think that it's something that we need to excuse or apologize for. Any televised sporting event has breaks in the action. This is a totally normal thing. And we've also invested a huge amount of time and resource into creating a system that will reliably capture every single fight that happens to ensure that those that don't make it on air have access to their match afterward as well. We have had varying degrees of success with that, but we had I believe 100% success rate at the last event. And so that's something that, I just want to say, I support our crew and our team, and I'm happy to talk through any concerns that people have about that separately.
That sounds good.
I mean, just my piece, we have more fights than there are hours in the day to show them, and we make an editorial decision to try to tell the best narrative content for the stream, and a lot of it is about making it approachable for new viewers. And that's the whole point why we've been working so hard to make Red Zone awesome, so that people who do want to see every single fight can do so. And we're working on even better ways to categorize, tag, and make those fights available to people almost the second that they occur. And you can see a little bit of that with the Sparky Cast work that we did at the last event. And we're also looking to see how can we go back and replay some of those fights that didn't make it to the stream on the stream when they were amazing, to make sure that they get the airtime that they deserve, because some of those fights are incredible.
Absolutely.
All right. We've got a few questions regarding either freestyle events or the Academy. So let's just start with the Academy.
Sure. So when does the Have Academy launch? That's planned for the fall. We had a great meeting this week going through the high-level curriculum as a starting point and the high-level strategy for the Academy. There's a big vision for it that goes beyond it being something for rookies. It's something that we see that encompasses the entire builder life cycle. So people throughout their journey as builders, whether you're just getting started or whether you've been here for a while and want to, expand out into something that you don't already know, whether you're an intermediate builder and need some help with soldering, or are trying to figure out how to approach designing your robot for the first time. Those are all things that we want to be able to provide and support throughout the builder life cycle. And so that's something to just say more generally about the Academy. It'll launch in the fall, probably in late October is right now, I think, what we're targeting. I can already feel Rob sweating. So I know that we've got a lot going on there, but it's really exciting. The appetite has been really significant so far. There's a huge amount of demand for it. And so just trying to figure out the best way to meet that demand based on where people are, what their experience levels are, and just trying to figure out exactly how we get it off the ground. But there's definitely an approach to it that is, rookie through to more experienced levels of builders, so we can meet people where they are and support them.
Sam, I have an idea.
Yeah.
We should launch on Halloween.
Okay.
And our first video should be how to get the magic smoke out of your ESC and robot.
Oh. I have some experience with that.
Yeah. Spooky things.
All right. Anything else about that Havoc Academy?
I don't think there were any other specific questions about the Academy, but there were some questions about freestyle that kind of relate to that a bit.
So this one's about a rookie-only tournament.
Yeah. So there was a question about whether there would be a tournament separate from the main one, designated for true rookies. And there's also a question about a new non-combat class. So whether or not we would, have things with games, steal the crown, capture the flag, all of those sorts of things. So I'll answer both of those together. So next year, in addition to the qualifying tournaments that we laid out, we will also host standalone freestyle tournaments. Those are things that we're still kind of working out the details of, and they will likely take place in Norwalk for 2024. But they will include folks from Academy, so we will have some Academy oriented events. We will also have some freestyle only events to allow people to compete in games and in different tournament structures that we can't necessarily support at a full scale NHRL event. That includes things like round robins that people get really excited about. Who knows, we could experiment with something that's a small capped double elimination tournament again. There's all sorts of things that we could do at a freestyle level that we can't necessarily do at a massive scale level at every tournament. But I think that we have historically with the sport wanted to avoid having like a rookie only tournament because we worried that took away some of the magic of like being a brand new builder able to compete shoulder to shoulder with somebody who's, one of your heroes in the sport. And we don't want that to go away. But we've also learned a lot and seen how the experience could be improved for rookies as well as for experienced builders if there were more opportunities for rookies to learn the ropes outside of a highly competitive setting. So the freestyle tournaments are one way to go about it. And in addition to having them at our regular tournaments, we will have these standalone freestyle tournaments as well.
Would those be in Norwalk or?
Right now, the
Anywhere.
plan is for Norwalk, but if we have the opportunity to host them elsewhere in other venues, we would consider doing that. And some of those we would attach, some kind of prizing to where we're able to. So one of the ideas that has been tossed around is break the bank. So if you stuff Brett with $5 for every fight, the first person to knock Brett over and take the lid off of Brett gets the cash that's inside. I mean, we toss out ideas like this all the time, so I think that would be a lot of fun. And somebody also asked, sorry to extend to that, somebody also asked if we would do fan fights at events, so allow spectators to do mini exhibition fights with kits and things like that. That's definitely something we've talked about doing. We didn't have a chance to run that in August, but it's something we might try to do for September and definitely for championships when we have more flexibility with the cages.
We experimented with that over in San Francisco.
We did experiment with that in San Francisco. We gave people a chance to drive robots, and people loved that, and it was a lot of fun. And thanks to Seth and Peter for being great sports about repairing those robots over and over and over again. So we appreciated that. Thank you. The Fleetles.
Yeah. Now, Kelly, you mentioned Brett and not knocking him over or getting some money out of him. Any other Brett updates in the future?
There is a question I think that you're getting at around if we would add a waggle stick to the Housebot. My position here is that Housebots are not exactly graceful ballet dancers, and I think that I would rather make our current Brett system a bit better before adding complexity to that. Austin, I don't know if you have a different perspective or additional perspective on that.
Summoning Brett to your robot comes with risk and reward.
And what's the reward?
You could get unstuck.
And the risk there, Austin?
You could get damaged by a giant robot.
There was a separate
It all depends on how good the driver is, and we've looked at some Brett driving school options.
Yes.
And teaching them good evasive maneuvers, pit maneuvers, how to really do all the different things.
Yes.
We need to build a large loop-de-loop for the Brett the loop section of the driving course, but that is definitely possible. The Bretts aren't powerful enough to do that.
We are going to be, working on better Brett driver training on a more serious note on that front. But we're working on that between now and September, and also looking at, making sure that the drivers understand that, they have a really serious role to avoid any damage situations. So definitely something that we're taking seriously. There was also a separate question about Brett while we're on the subject about who our favorite Housebot is. So I did a mini poll again of the announcers. I think that there was some favoritism for Flo.
Okay. Interesting.
I think people really liked flow. One thing I don't know that people know about that I just think is kind of fun NHRL lore is that when we were going through the process of redesigning our logo and we were working with our marketing agency, they asked us about the Housebots, which was a conversation that ultimately led to the creation of Sparky. But we were asking questions about the Housebots, and Gil actually did a full personality assessment for every single one of the Housebots that was in existence at the time. There are more now. So that is.
Does that
You can
document?
guess Brett's Myers-Briggs.
There is one who is an ex.
Unfortunately, I have to go.
Oh, all right. See you later, Austin. Thank you for coming.
Wait, Austin, what's your favorite house spot?
What's your favorite house spot?
The one we haven't built yet.
There you go, the secret one.
Thank you for joining us, Austin.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
So Gil had done a full personality assessment for all of the Housebots, and it's very funny. So you should ask Gil about that at some point in time. That there is, I believe, an ex-CIA agent, and it's a very robust storytelling opportunity that Gil thoroughly enjoyed. And then also a little teaser for the September event is there will be a main feature on the event creative that is going to, I think, be a fun surprise for everybody.
Including me. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know,
but
you haven't
Bert
seen
is
it
my
yet.
favorite. He's silly. Bert, the Housebot. All right, let's get into a little bit of rules here at the end. Let's see. Should we talk about? Oh, it would be nice if Austin was still here for this. But the weight bonus stuff. All the stacking this and that, mini-bot this, non-traditional that.
Yeah, so like we said before, we're still going through the process of looking at all of the suggestions that have come in about weight bonuses, and I can confirm that that list includes all of the suggestions we've gotten about weight bonus rules, all of the concerns about robots like Loophole. We've heard them, we understand them. I think that this is a complex issue, and I will speak and say I'm not an expert on this, and so I'm trusting people like Austin and the rest of our team to really make the best assessment of all of this. But overall, from a position of the weight bonuses and questions that came up about inclusivity around weight bonuses and whether or not we would change those things, or if we think that they're fair. I think that the inclusivity of the weight bonus, my position on this has been that the inclusivity means giving people more things to work with. People can use different. If you have a weight bonus and the opportunity to go over a limit, it gives you more flexibility on the parts that you can use and materials you can use, and often that can come at a lower cost, and so that's something that I think about a lot. I also think that mini bots allow more people to come in. I think that being able to invite more people to join your team to drive a mini bot gets more people into the sport. So I think that on an inclusivity standpoint is an important consideration. I think that also the creativity that the non-traditional designs allow for people to explore is really a distinguishing factor for our sport, and something that sets us apart from areas that are a little bit more built to spec. So I think that that's a really important piece of all of this, that inclusivity is not one thing or the other. I think it's a really nuanced thing when it comes to inclusivity in the sport, and the barriers to entry are more complex than just cost and complexity. I think that more widely, the thought here is that until something like a weight bonus and taking advantage of a weight bonus is the thing that is necessary to win, I don't think that it's inherently unfair. And so I think that that's just something that's an important thing to consider in how we look at rules in general, is that, we don't have a clean sweep on that front. So, Sam, you might have some additional thoughts here to add.
Yeah, I think that you don't need to take advantage of our weight bonuses to be competitive in our tournaments. And so you can have your 3-pounder that's 3 pounds on the dot, and you can come to NHRL and win with that, and then take that to any other tournament and win there as well. So it's not a requirement, like you were saying, Kelly. And I'm with you on the creativity that it allows for. Like some bot designs are really hard to get underweight, some pneumatic this or that. there's just a lot of weird space, and to be able to just go over the edge a little bit is nice. But there is parts of it that are kind of a bummer. The little RC car toys don't really add much to the fights, and and when they're flying as well, it feels weird. But it's all being assessed together and
in aggregate, yeah.
Yeah, and the people looking at it know what they're doing. It's Mike Jeffries, it's Gil, it's Ricky, it's Rob.
And it's also members of the community as well.
Yeah, and so it goes in front of so many people, and they take it seriously, and they want this to be as good as possible, and they work hard to make that so.
Yeah. So just going back, there's a couple of things that we haven't answered, and I just want to make sure we don't miss them. And sorry, if we miss your question, it's an accident. We're trying to work from spreadsheet and from the Nolt site. But more YouTube content. Do we think that NHRL is doing all it can do with its YouTube content? And have we considered making tournaments easier to watch with other cut downs and things like that? So in the past, we've done this sort of thing. We have experimented with long form content before. We've experimented with recaps. We've experimented with longer form storytelling. And I think just to kind of look at it from a perspective of where I'm looking at how we allocate resource, on all of this, we love the 90-minute cut downs, but they're really, really labor intensive, and we did not see really any uplift in subscribers from those. And they were getting, at most 5,000 to 10,000 views, and that's because they're a really amazing engagement play for existing community members. But we're a really small team, and we have to be really careful right now, in particular, about what we spend our time and our resources on. And we have to spend time and money on things that are growing the business and growing the sport. We spend a lot on creating live stream, which is largely an engagement play right now. That's not a hugely watched stream. It appeals highly to people who are super fans already. And so it's something where that's, not something that's going away. It won't go anywhere. But when we have to look at the balance, we already invest a lot in creating live stream, and we have to wait a bit until we're really able to invest in more content that drives more engagement. And so right now we have to focus our resources on creating content that drives growth, which is really much shorter form content that is appealing on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and things like that. So I wouldn't say it's not something we would do in the future. I absolutely think it's something we could do in the future, but right now it's a conscious choice, although I wish that we had unlimited resources to be able to do it.
More time would be amazing.
Yes, more time would be good, for sure. Another question that came up was if we would have more expo-style events around the country. The answer to that is yes. We're exploring that in a couple of different ways right now. Those would be in addition to the freestyle events and the additional tournaments. So we have a lot on our plate for next year, and we're building out our team and structuring it accordingly to ensure that those expo-style events don't create any complexity at the tournament level. So just working on how all of that will work. What else?
I'm seeing a recent one about beyond the United States.
Beyond the U.S., right now we don't have international event plans. I would say that's something that, and we're talking about for 2024, it's just not something that is realistic for 2024. It's maybe possible in 2025, but it really depends on how the events in 2024 go. As Austin said, we just have to make sure that we're doing these things in a way that creates more cost efficiency and drives us toward breaking even at this point, which we hope to do in the next couple of years. And if we find the right opportunity to host an event internationally that helps to support that, it's something we would consider. Let's see. There was a question.
I've got one that says, when is the next new bot event?
We will do the new bot event in January of 2024.
Cool.
Here in Norwalk.
Awesome.
So that will be the January event will still be the New Year, New Bots.
Sounds good.
It has a nice ring to it, and it worked out well for us last year, so that's the plan. More breaking news. I should have said that when we were talking about the 2024 schedule. Sorry, I forgot. And then, what's our dream robot to get for the museum? was another question. So I socialized this one. My answer is more, I actually philosophically with the museum would like it to be more of an educational opportunity for people to learn more about building robots. So I don't have a particular dream robot, but I have a dream that the museum really helps to bring more people into the sport in a way that I think we can do more of. One of the most common things that happens at our events is that people go on a tour or they talk to one of our staff members and they ask how they can get involved. So we know that the spectators at the event are super, super close to wanting to build a robot. And so trying to help ease that path is really exciting to me. And I think there's more we can do there. And then the target list from everybody else. I think Luke said he wants Hypershock. Gil wants Sawblaze.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we also had a request for Copperhead, which is a little inside suggestion from a member of the Copperhead team wanting us to see Copperhead. So we'll have to have a discussion about that. We also have a Robot Wars Stan who wants one of the Robot Wars Housebots, probably Matilda. And so that was a suggestion. Gil would be happy with Shunt.
Me too. Big hammer guy. But I think it would be cool to have every generation of the Brett in there. So from Cinderblock to whatever steel they are now.
Yeah, yeah. And then, someone was asking about the zoning situation, and I want to make sure that we answer that. And a couple of other things to make sure everyone knows what's going on there. So we are clear on the zoning situation. That article that came out about NHRL, if you hadn't seen it, noted that we had a permit issue here at 165. It was something that we were able to resolve through a meeting with the Planning and Zoning Authority for Norwalk. So we are clear on our zoning and have some modest restrictions, but nothing that affects the tournaments or the way that we run the business. So there's no concern about the zoning. And I think that that's also just dovetailing with some wider things that have been going on with us around fire safety and public safety. And I just want to be clear with everybody about how those things are working. So Ricky Willems has been leading the charge on managing our relationship with varying levels of seniority of public safety officials in the state of Connecticut. So we have now been cleared in Connecticut by not just the local Norwalk Fire Department, but also the state fire department and also the state police that manage all of the fuel flame-based robots and explosives is what they call the group. And so we have been in very, very close contact and working very closely with them, doing demos, showing them all of our procedures, working with them on modifying a couple of those procedures. But we are in full cooperation with the state and local officials on that front, and have come out on the other end of that with flying colors. They've actually invited Ricky to speak at a national event for other people in other states about what we do as we go into our national expansion. So really able to speak to the seriousness with which we take our role as an event organizer with things that are, that are dangerous. We take pride in doing dangerous things safely, and wherever we are able to continue to improve that, we do. We have, from the last event, a very short list of suggestions, things like putting each of the flamethrower robots into a named cubby, as an example, which is something we don't do, but it's something that they suggested. These are above and beyond anything that we have to do. These are decisions that we can opt to make if we would like to. And we look at all those things, and where they're practical, we absolutely do them. So those are things that we're doing to continue to really work with them. For those of you who don't know the inside baseball of these things, as I didn't, we are learning a lot, but the state of Connecticut tends to be pretty restrictive. And so the fact that we've been able to clear with such flying colors in the state of Connecticut is really indicative of how seriously we take these things. And we also were cleared in California when we went to do open sauce, which is another very restrictive state. So we feel really strongly and positively about how everyone views those policies and that they're well informed. Other things that you may not know about our events, we have multiple layers of security when we're here. So we have undercover plainclothes officers as well as marked vehicles, an EMT, and then between all of the various state level officials, typically around 5 to 8 fire safety and explosives professionals. So we have a very, very safe and secure setup and take that really seriously. And I think it's just important for everyone to know that these are all things that we're doing very hand in hand with those organizations.
Yep, by the book over here. I think that's going to do it. You got any last questions that you wanted to address, Kelly?
There are some more questions that have come in, but there's a lot of questions that have come in that have not been cleared, and I think we're over an hour. So I'm going to have to take these to the suggestion box or some other forum in Discord or schedule another one of these for a couple weeks from now to help answer, but I will try to answer some of these in writing over the next couple of days in the note or on Discord.
Sounds good. All right.
So again, I'm Kelly Biederman. I'm the CEO of NHRL. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Sam, Evil Henchman from NHRL. We really appreciate you joining us, and Austin. And we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.